signature register and what is a multiple input signature register, right? So let us continue that discussion right now, right? So sometimes we may have some logic module which has been designed by somebody. Okay, we only know what the specification of this logic module was. Okay. So for example, this logic module could be a multiplier, right? It could be a multiplier which takes as input, let us say, two numbers and it multiplies them. Maybe we also will have it may be a sequential multiplier, in which case we may also have a reset mechanism and a clock mechanism, right? So there is a clock here and there is a reset button. So it's maybe we can assume that the numbers are available when the reset button is activated. And then maybe at the end of the multiplication, some sort of a signal is available saying multiplication is complete. Okay. It may be it may happen in number of steps. Okay, a combinational multiplier will be expensive to design because it will have a lot of gates. So maybe we are compromising and we are trying to build a sequential multiplier. Okay, I'm sure you have studied multipliers when you were in college, right? What is one way to build a multiplier? Anybody remembers? There are many ways to build a multiplier. Okay, so the most common that you may have come across is the shift and add multiplier, right? So let us try that. Okay, so suppose I have to multiply. So what we'll do is we'll have some sort of a multiply accumulator and a multiplicand.
Sir, I think we are not able to see the developments on the slide. We are seeing only one slide, it's union, and code is there. I think it's stuck possibly.
Oh, I see. I think somewhere.
I think you are trying to draw a figure which is not visible to us, sir.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
What do you see on the slide right now?
Union slide is there.
No, that is wrong.
There is a code here. There is a code here.
I didn't even bring up that slide. There is something wrong.
Okay. आप reshare कर सकते हैं sir मेरे ख्याल से.
Reshare, huh?
Yeah, just off it and on. Thank you, sir.
Is it coming now?
Sir. Now we are able to see that black background and gray boxes. Logic at double N. Yes, sir.
Right. So here is the multiplier. Let us say it's a sequential multiplier. And we are assuming that there is a reset button here. And then there is a clock here. Right. And here is our multiplicand. And here is our multiplier. And at the end, we expect the product to be available here. Are you able to see now, Vinith? And this signal fin or finish, it tells that it is complete. Okay, the multiplication is complete. Okay. So one way to design this multiplier is to do something like this. We will have a accumulator, right? And that is where the multiplier gets loaded. Okay, so the multiplier goes into the accumulator. Am I audible and am I visible? Audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Slides also visible.
Slides
you are working on
okay, fine. I was getting worried that maybe I'm not audible. Fine. So this is our multiplier. Okay. So we are going to load the accumulator. And similarly, our multiplicand goes here. Okay. And maybe we can have a register which is initialized to 0. So initially, let us assume that there is a register called Q. Okay. It is initially reset to 0. So at the end, we want the product to be sitting here. Remember, if you have an n-bit multiplier and an n-bit multiplicand, the product will be 2n bits. So we have an n-bit register called A. We have a n-bit register called Q. So maybe I should load this in Q. I'll call this Q and I'll call this A. The tradition is to call this the accumulator. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll look at the most significant bit. Okay. So let me illustrate this algorithm here. I'm sure you are familiar with it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So let us say this is our multiplier. And we want to multiply it with, let us say 101. Okay. So what we'll do is initially the accumulator has 0, 0, 0 and the Q register has 101. Okay. So this is my accumulator initially reset to 0 and the multiplicand has the 100. So these are multiplicand. These are accumulator, and this is our multiplier. So always we have to see the this bit. This bit is currently 1, right? It is just like we do multiplication in real life. We start from the rightmost digit and we multiply the whole multiplicand, right? The same thing we are going to do. We see a 1 here, therefore we add the multiplicand and do a shift. Okay, so because we see a 1 here, okay, so we are going to add the multiplicand. So this time AC becomes equal to 100 or 100, and Q becomes Q remains 101. And then we shift. See, when we see a 1, we have to add and shift. So the next step, AC will become equal to 0, 1, 0, and Q becomes equal to 0, 1, 0. So when I shifted this 1, 0, 0, this 1 moved here and this 0 moved here, and a 0 got shifted inside. And this 1 came out, it is discarded, and this 0 came here, this 1 came here, and this 0 entered here. Okay. So we added and then we shifted. Next I see a 0 here. Okay, this 0. Okay. So when I see a 0, all I do is a shift. Okay, so this time the accumulator becomes equal to 0, 0, 1, and Q becomes equal to 0, 0, 1. See, this 0 shifted here, this 1 shifted here, and an extra 0 was shifted in. And this 0 shifted here, and this 0, 1 shifted here, and this 0 got discarded. Finally, we see a 1 here. So we have to do an add and a shift. So this time the accumulator becomes, see, this MD is 100, it gets added to this one. So we'll get 101. And Q remains 001. And then after doing an add, we have to do a shift, right? So let me highlight the fact that this is okay. Then when I shift, the accumulator will become 010, and this becomes 100. See, this 1 came here, right? And this 00 came here, right? And this 10 came here. Everybody followed? So I'll ask people to respond in the chat box. In case, I'll check the chat box and see if anybody is saying they did not follow. Oh, okay, people are writing in the chat box. I didn't see. So what is the final answer? The final answer is answer is 010 followed by 100. So that number, if you do the math, you will figure out it is 20. Okay, so 010 followed by 100 is the number 20, which is the answer we expected. So these are treated as unsigned numbers. Okay, I'm treating this as an unsigned number, and I'm treating this as an unsigned number, and I'm getting the value 20. So this is the algorithm. Okay. So in order to design this, somebody may have come up with an architecture. So here is a adder. The adder must be capable of adding the values of A and M. And that may generate a sum S, and that should be loaded back to the accumulator. Okay, so the value of this must be loaded back. Okay, so this is loaded back in the accumulator. Okay, so when we do a reset, we must remember to clear the accumulator, load the multiplier, load the multiplicand, right? And then there is a control logic somewhere here. And what are the inputs to this control logic? One input will be the last bit of the multiplier. So it looks at the last bit of the multiplier and decide do an add and a shift. Okay, so the shift operation, let us show it here. Either we'll perform an addition, load it, and then follow it with a shift, or we will skip the addition and we'll simply shift. Okay. So if there is a shift control to A and Q, they are being given, they are being driven by the controller. And similarly, if there is a load button on the accumulator and the multiplier, etc., so there will be a load control here, and that is also being driven by this. Okay. So we'll have a load control here, and one similarly for accumulator and one for multiplier. Okay. And then maybe the controller has to do this n times, where n is the number of bits. So internally it will also use a counter of some kind. This is part of the controller itself. So there is a counter here, and the controller also has to manage itself by resetting that counter to 0 and incrementing that counter, right? And then comparing it with the value n, and then stopping when the counter becomes equal to n. So from 0 to n minus 1, it must perform the operation n times. And then there is a finish signal also it must provide. So this fin signal is also coming from the controller, and the reset signal is an input to the controller. So this reset button must go to the controller. And the clock signal also goes to the controller. Okay. So that is how this is sometimes called as the architecture or organization, whatever you want to call it. Organization is fine. Okay. See, this was not specified anywhere. You understand? Nobody asked us to do it this way. The person who designed it, he decided to use this method of calculating the product of two numbers, right? And again, we some sort of inherently made some assumptions. We assumed that they were unsigned numbers. Okay. So if they are not, we have to do something else. Similarly, we assumed that they are integers, right? If they are not, we have to see whether we have to do something else. Will it work for fixed point? I think so, right? Instead of integers, suppose I was using fixed point representation, and I was trying to do the multiplication of fixed point numbers, okay, real numbers. Then will this work? We don't know that, right? So we'll have to verify whether this will work. So the designer will go ahead and design this, okay, and who knows, in that algorithm there could be a problem. See, I just illustrated the algorithm for one case. Okay, will it always work? Right. Is there a bug in my algorithm which is not known to me? Right. I verified it for one case. Okay, but that is not really a foolproof verification. I had to try, and in this example, maybe it's an algorithm that has been known for a long time. Okay, so people have been using the shift and add algorithm for multiplication, and they sort of know that it works. Okay, but what if I decide to make some changes? Okay, I may decide to be smart and make some changes to this algorithm. Okay. See, for example, you may be aware of a modification to this by Booth. Okay, it's called Booth's recoding of the multiplier. Okay. So the idea is, see, suppose the multiplier is something like this. If I had a let us say multiplying 16-bit numbers, and by chance I have all alternate ones and zeros. Okay. This will be let us take this. And let us take A to be the multiplier, the multiplicand. So this may be a terrible choice, right? Because it will do an add and a shift for every cycle, isn't it? So all the bits of Q are 1. So we'll end up doing an addition followed by a shift everywhere. Okay. What if I could one idea that some of you may have realized is, hey, multiplication is commutative, so I could have just switched these two. Okay. Then I would have had less number of additions so I could count the number of ones in this, and I could say whichever has more ones, that should be the multiplicand, and the other one should be the multiplier. But Booth did even better. What he said is, let us, if you remember, right? If you have a number like this represents 15, isn't it? If you have 1, 1, 1, it represents 7. If you have 1, 1, it represents 3. This can be written as 16 minus 1, which is nothing but 1 followed by 4 zeros, 3 zeros, minus 1. Okay. Similarly here, we can treat this as 1 followed by 3 zeros minus 1. And this can be treated as 1 followed by 2 zeros minus 1. So Booth says, if you ever have to do a multiplication by 1 followed by all zeros, just treat it as so you will have to do a subtraction in order to start, right? And then you will have a series of zeros. So here nothing will happen. It will just keep shifting. Okay, and then there will be one addition. So instead of doing 16 additions, we will do 1 addition and 1 subtraction. This can be generalized. Okay, so this can be generalized. Okay. So suppose I illustrate this for this case. So because there is a 1 here, okay. So Mr. Booth says, pretend that there is a, add the 0 at the end. Okay. Then compare this 0 with this 1. So 0 minus 1. Okay, that can be treated as, minus 1 or 1 bar. Then do 1 minus 1 and put it as 0. Then this 1 minus 0 will be 1. Then this 0 minus 1 will be 1 bar. This 1 minus 0 will be 0. If you didn't follow this, let me repeat it. I will add a fictitious 0 at the end and a fictitious 0 at the other end also. Okay. I'll subtract 0 minus 1 and I'll write it as 1 bar. Okay. Then I'll do 1 minus 1 and put it as 0 here. Then 1 minus 0 becomes 1. Then the 0 minus 1 becomes 1 bar. Then finally 1 minus 0 becomes 1. Okay. So this is a recoding of the multiplier. Why is it called recoding? See, normally we are used to binary logic, right? That means we only have zeros and ones. Okay. Now we are treating this 1 bar as an additional logic value. So this is a tri-state logic, or 3-state logic. So normally if I give you 1 followed by 1011, 1011 you will write it as 1 times 8 plus 1 times 4 plus 1 times 1 times 2 plus 1 times 1. Are you with me? See, the weight for this is 8, isn't it? The weight for this is 4. The weight for this is 2, and the weight for this is 1. So when I add everything, I'll get 8 plus 2 plus 1, that is 11. In the same way, if I take this 1 bar, this will have 1 times 16, because this has a positional weight of 16, minus 1 times 8, because this 1 bar means 8, 1 bar means minus 1. Okay. Plus 1 times 4. Okay. Plus 0 times 2. Minus 1 times 1. So what is the answer? So 16 minus 8 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. 12 plus 0 is 0. 12 minus 1 is 11. So it's also going to give the same answer. So we have recoded the multiplier, okay, so that when required we'll subtract. When required we'll subtract. So you can try this one. Try this. And tell me what is the recoded value. So what did we have to do? We have to add a fictitious 0 and a fictitious 1. 0. Okay, we'll add 2 fictitious zeros. So start from the right hand side. So 0 minus 1 is 1 bar. Then 1 minus 0 is 1. Right? Then 0 minus 1 is 1 bar. Then 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay. Then we will have one more 0. We have one more 0. Then we will have 1 and 1 prime and 1. Did I do it right? Is this clear to people? Anybody has a doubt? Okay, Mudit has also tried, and Manjunath has also tried. Are their answers the same as mine? 1 prime. My answer is 1 followed by 1 prime 1 bar 0 0 1 bar 1 0 0 1 prime. Just verify 1 bar 0 0. I think this is correct. This is 1, then 1 bar, then 1 bar 1 0. Then 0 0 1. Do you agree with my answer? I can't write a 1 bar easily, so that is causing a lot of headache. I wish I could write it on the board. This prime is causing a lot of headache. So 1 0. So this 1 0 is represented here. Then the 0 1 is represented as 1 bar. This 1 0 becomes 1. And this 1 1 becomes 0. Okay. Then we have one more 1 1 that became a 0. We have one more 1 1 that became another 0. And 0 1 became 1 prime. Then that 1 0 became 1 and 0 1 became 1 prime. Okay. So this number, what does this number represent in binary? This represents 1011 is 1011 is, I believe, B, right? And 1101 is D. What is that number? It is 11 times 16 plus 13. So that is 176 plus 13. That is equal to 189. This was the original number I took. Okay. Now the same number has been written as, this is a 1, which means we are giving it a weight of 256. Minus 128, because this has a weight of 128. Then this has a weight of 64. Right. And this has a weight of 4. And this has a weight of 2, and this has a weight of 2. So this is 128. 128 plus 64 plus 1. So 128 plus 64. This is 60 plus 1. Okay. So I believe our recording is correct. Did everybody understand the recording? Can you tell me if you have any difficulty? Correct. Correct. Many others are also confirming that it is 189. Andini and ILAX 4076 guest. GV Mudit. Okay, everybody is comfortable with this. So if we have to modify the same architecture, to apply Booth's algorithm, instead of looking at one bit at a time, right? We'll have to try and see whether we can do exactly what we are doing now. We'll keep one extra flip-flop. You remember how we extended that bit? Okay. So we'll call that bit as F or something like that. So initially it will be set to 0. Okay. And we'll keep looking at that also. The controller has to look at that bit also. There are 4 cases. If it is 0, 0, that means both the bits are 0. Then our recoding says it should be 0. These are the 4 cases. 0, 0, 0, 1. We have 0, 1, or 1, 0, or 1, 1. If it is 0, 0, we'll do nothing, we'll just shift. If it is 0, 1, our encoding is a 1. So what should I do? Anybody, can you type the answer? If I see a 0, 1, that means I see a 0 in the most significant bit position of Q and a 1 here. Then what should I do? Add and shift. Very good. Nandini is correct. Add and shift. Our algorithm says record 1, 0, 1 as a 1. Remember, if I see a 0, 1 like this, I was recording it as 1. So 1 is nothing but add and shift. Similarly, if I see a 1, 0, what should I do? If I see a 1, 0, 1 in the most significant bit position of, I'm sorry, 1 in the least significant bit position of Q and 0 in F, what should I do? I was coding that as, yes, correct. GV is giving the correct answer. It's subtract and shift because I was going to code it as a 1 bar. And finally 1, 1, anybody can tell me? For 1, 1, both will be shift right. It's not shift left. It is shift, both are shift right. Nothing happens because 1, 1 is also be 0, isn't it? That is what our coding says. Whenever you see a 1, 1, code it as a 0. Okay. So this will require not just an adder, but also an add shift, an add subtract. Okay. And of course, we should be able to shift it like this. So the algorithm is the same. We when we get a reset button, when somebody puts a reset, I will set multiplier to 0. Sorry. Let me show the algorithm here. Initially Q equal to 0, Q equal to multiplier, then F equal to 0, then M equal to multiplier, count equal to 0. So this is what happens at reset. Then I will look at test Q naught and F. There are 4 cases: 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. So if Q0 is 0 and this one is 1, nothing happens, just shift and proceed. If it is 1, 0, add and proceed. Right? So we'll have to add here. Is A equal to A minus N. And here it will be, in both these cases, no action, only shift. Right shift your MQF. AQF. And then check if count equal to count plus 1. And check if count becomes equal to N, else so this is our sort of pseudo code. Okay, this is what should be done. Okay, and the hardware should emulate this behavior. So this is sometimes we write it as pseudo code. Or algorithm. N is the number of bits. In this case, it comes directly here. In this case, it comes here. You can apply this to the previous case and verify the answer. Okay, so here we would have coded it as 1 bar 1. Okay. So the Booth multiplier typically will work well. So when is the best case? See, the best case is when the multiplier is something like this. See, if this multiplier is 1 followed by, if it's a series of ones, you know, this multiplier will happily recode it as 1 followed by so many 1 bars. Okay. So this way, instead of doing n additions, it will do 2 operations, 1 addition and 1 subtraction. Okay. Whereas this is the worst case. Something like this will cause it to alternately do subtraction, addition, subtraction. It will be worse than the original algorithm. Okay. If you ever get alternate zeros and ones or something like that, then you should not, ideally you should not do Booth's algorithm. What is the advantage of Booth's recoding? Can anybody tell me? So think and tell me what is the advantage of Booth's algorithm? Why is it helpful? What are what are your thoughts? Why should we use Booth's algorithm? Minimizes adder usage. No, we'll need one adder subtractor anyway, right? So we will need one. It will not reduce the number of partial products. It is reducing something. The number of cycles used by the adder. No, actually, see, look at this algorithm, right? In each cycle, what are we doing? We are testing the value of Q0 and F. Okay. And depending on these 4 cases, in 2 cases, we'll simply shift. And in 2 cases, we'll add and shift or subtract and shift. Okay. So usually, when we decide the clock cycle, right, this is what is happening inside a clock, right? If I cut this algorithm here, everything above this line is reset part. Okay. And what is happening inside every clock cycle is this part. This is what happens in every clock cycle. Okay. So whether we see a 0, 0 or a 1, 1 or a 1, 0, whatever be the case, I must provide enough time for the worst case, isn't it? Okay. I cannot change the clock duty cycle or the clock's cycle depending on whether I see a 0, 0 or a 1, 1. Okay. See, as human beings, when we see a 0, 0, we'll simply drop this add, etc., and we'll directly go here. So we are saving ourselves some time. But in a sequential logic, which is a clock logic or a synchronous logic, we will not be able to get that advantage. Unfortunately, we'll still, even if it is 0, 0, okay, we will skip the addition and go here. Okay, but the clock duration is the same. So I don't think in our synchronous realization of Booth's algorithm, we are going to see any speed advantage. Isn't it? The clock period, the worst case is, this could be the worst path. Critical path is you will have to do a comparison. Then you will have to do either an add or a subtract. Assume that add and subtract take the same amount of time. So time for one comparison, time for one addition, time for one shift, time for increment, and maybe one more comparison. You can do a little bit of parallelism. This counting can be done ahead. Right? You don't have to wait for all these things to happen. So maybe this one we can avoid. So, but you will need one comparison plus one addition plus one shift plus one more comparison. Okay. So the worst case time T comparison plus T add plus T shift plus T comparison. increment. This increment alone, we can try to reduce. We can do this along with one of these operations. Okay. So we can possibly get rid of this. Everybody is following? Are you able to follow what I'm saying? Tanmay, you have given a comment. What does it mean for mouse scrolling in computer means? Nandini, I don't agree that it will be faster, because no matter what the multiplier is, we are going to do the same amount of, the clock cycle will have to be decided based on this. Okay. If I give you how much time it takes for each of these, then you can decide the clock cycle. Okay. So what is the big advantage? Why are we going to do Booth's algorithm? Tell me, think. What is still the advantage? Tanmay, are you saying Booth's algorithm will be used for mouse scrolling? I don't understand. What else is important in VLSI? One is area. One is delay or performance. What else? Correct. So both Nandini and GPS, GV also, I think they have given the correct answer. So it's possibly power which is likely to be reduced by Booth's algorithm, isn't it? Because if you don't perform additions and subtractions, okay, in this example, okay, in the original algorithm, we would have done addition in so many times. Okay, whereas here we are doing only 2. So indeed, this may be a low power than more. If we can somehow manipulate the, somehow, if the clock speed can be speeded up during this 0011, okay, but that won't be asynchronous anymore. Okay, we'll need 2 clocks, and that will complicate the design, and we don't know, I mean, that may be a very dicey thing to do. Somebody may decide to do it that way. Okay, they'll say, hey, I will use 2 clocks. One I will use for the case when it is 0, 1 and 1, 0, and the one I'll use it for the case 0, 0 and 1, 1. Okay. But that won't be a synchronous implementation anymore. It will be a multi-clock implementation. Clear? So the designer takes all these liberties. See, nobody told the designer how to do it, right? But the designer may have been given some additional inputs, like saying, you must minimize power, right? And he may have thought of this method. Okay, he will read some papers, and he will say, hey, here is an algorithm that somebody proposed for low power, multiplication or something like that, right? By the way, you don't have to stop at recoding only 2 bits at a time. You could try to recode 3 bits at a time, right? And come up with an even smarter algorithm. Okay, so I will leave that as a problem for you. Okay, so instead of recoding 2 bits at a time, what if I could look at 3 bits at a time? Okay. Will my algorithm be any better? Okay, there it will not be any more shift and add and shift. It may be something a little bit more. So I will leave that as an exercise for you to think about. Definitely it will reduce the amount of work. Definitely it will reduce the amount of work required. It may also reduce power, etc. But see, whenever you try to do something good, like in this example, we tried to be smart, but we increase the hardware a little bit. Instead of just requiring an adder, we are also requiring a subtractor or an adder subtractor. So there may be a minor increase in hardware here. Similarly, if I try to be smart and say I will recode 3 bits at a time, then your architecture will have more hardware. Okay. So we will have to compare which one will give me better power. It may not be such an easy decision to make. Okay. And see, does it always do well? This Booth's algorithm, we just argued, right? The best case is when we have a lot of ones coming like this. The more ones that are there in a series, the better it is for us. Okay. In fact, if I give you a sequence like this, tell me how many additions, subtractions, and shift operations you require. How many additions? See, there will be one here because I see a 1-0 pattern, and there will be one at the end. Am I right? So I believe the answer is 2. How many subtractions? There will be one here, right? And there will be one here. So there will be 2 subtractions. And shift will be. Okay. So compare this to the original case was, I believe we would have had 6 additions. So we have reduced it from 6 to 2, 6 to 4. Okay. So it all depends on little bit of a luck factor, right? If I give a 1010 pattern, the algorithm that I have come up with, the Booth's algorithm, may do worse, right? So that is also an exercise in verification, isn't it? If I give you completely random patterns, okay, then is it true that I am saving a certain percentage of power? Okay, how much power am I saving? Okay. I may want to find out as a verification engineer. I may want to find out, what is the, number of additions, multiplication, the number of additions or subtractions that are ongoing. Correct. Nandini and GV are giving correct answers. So in general, if I give you 2 n-bit numbers, right? In the worst case, you may do n additions. In the best case, you may do only 2. Okay. But in general, right? On an average, I think Booth's algorithm will do better. Okay. But how much better? We have to simulate. Okay. So simulation is required. Find out the average performance. You can also do analysis, quantitative analysis or simulation. In quantitative analysis, we will assume something like all patterns are equally probable. Okay, only then you can do analysis. It is otherwise very difficult. Okay, but simulation is more powerful. If I don't, maybe my assumption is not, it may not be necessarily true that all the patterns are equally likely. Okay, I may have, it may be true that, I have more zeros in my bets than ones. Then simulation only will be required to perform this. That clear? So verification also can play this additional role of giving us some, performance numbers, right? In addition to telling us whether it is functionally correct. So go back to the original thing. We came up with this architecture for Booth's their functional bugs can occur, right? I mean, maybe, when implementing this algorithm, I may have made some, incorrect, something may have gone wrong. Okay, so I'll have to write a verification test bench to check whether so I wanted to spend about 5 minutes thinking about, what kind of tests you will run and how to implement this boost multiplier. Okay, spend a few minutes thinking about it.